What happens when a successful entrepreneur who built a billion-dollar company and a veteran orthodontic specialist team up to share their stories of entrepreneurship and experiences in building a thriving business? You get the In Your Face podcast. Learn how to survive and thrive in today's ultra-competitive market. Now, let's start the show.
Blair Feldman here, co-host of the In Your Face podcast, where we discuss stories of building a thriving business in today's competitive marketplace. I was a practicing orthodontist for 20 plus years, and now with my friend and business partner, Craig Weiss, who is the former CEO of a company he scaled to $1 billion valuation, we help orthodontists and dentists to grow their practices. This episode today is brought to you by Mouthguard Club and Retainer Club. Both services help drive new patients, reactivations, and referrals to your orthodontic or dental office. Mouthguard Club provides personalized custom mouthguards that are perfectly fitted for your teeth. Not to mention you can fully customize the design and even put your team logo on it. It's also one of the best fitting and performing mouthguards available. Retainer Club is the easiest way for orthodontists to provide patients with perfectly fitting retainers at a great price, while also sending you a steady stream of new patients into your office who are actively interested in getting treatment. Over 1,000 patients already love Retainer Club, and it's easy to use online services to regularly order and replace their retainers without taking up your staff time. And orthodontists love Retainer Club because their long-term fans continue to refer new patients to their office, and the smiles they created are being maintained for life. To learn more about becoming a partner office, to bring in more patients, go to retainerclub.com/partner. Today, I'm super excited to have on the podcast JW Oliver. JW is the managing partner of SupportDDS. He spent 33 years in the dental field, so he knows what he's talking about. He's got a great story, and I want to share it with you today. He lives in Texas, but spent some time in Costa Rica and Africa, and I'm going to let him share that with you. And, we got to hear more, too, but we're going to save it for a little later. There's so much to talk about the fact that you're climbing to the Mount Everest base camp, which is happening in the next couple of weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm always, it's like when my mom heard Everest, she was thinking 29,000 feet. And I had to say, Mom, no, it's base camp. It's still 18,000 feet or 17,500.
But this is like, still, this is a Herculean effort. Yeah, I think this is going to put you into the rarefied air of that small group of people who can do this. But do me a favor, tell us more about SupportDDS and sort of how it got started and what services it provides for dentists.
Yeah, it was started in a very unusual way. I actually went to a Christian conference down in Curacao, fathers.com, which I've been a part of for years, and met a guy there from Zimbabwe. He and I became friends. Our wives hit it off together, and he started, quizzing me about, hey, we should get in business together. We actually took a family trip together, sitting around, and he says, what can we do together? And I thought, man, I have no idea. We're in two different spectrums of the world. I'm in the dental business and you're in the commercial property food business. And then we realized that there was a need to put the people in Zimbabwe back to work. Real short story. Zimbabwe has high unemployment rate, but yet very highest literacy rate in the country out of 54 countries, the continent out of 54 countries are the highest, as well as the literacy. So we found there was just a very high level of university educated people. And so Blair, that really just brought it into the focus that we had an opportunity. And so we got started, we kicked it off. We weren't in the dental side. We were actually just in the general business with some software companies, some payroll services, some financial planning companies. And then a good dentist friend of mine said, hey, there's a need for this in the dental area, in dental offices, for a lot of the repetitive tasks and things that took and stole a lot of their front office time, whether that be insurance verification, verification of services, maybe some light bookkeeping, social media marketing, follow up with patients or confirmation of patients. So in a nutshell, SupportDDS, Blair, provides a full-time team member for a office. So they work 40 hours for you, same person. There's no shared services. And it's somewhere around 30% of the cost of what it would typically cost for a person sitting at your office in the U.S.
So that's amazing. And I can picture in my head, I've definitely heard the Zimbabwe accent. It's this lovely sort of British accent. So what a cool way to add that to your practice. But give me an example. So I'm a practice. Well, who's your ideal practice, and how do they begin to integrate this? And that's on the early stage side. And on the later stage side, what does a practice look like, and what does it sound like who's actively using SupportDDS in their office?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. It's interesting. The dental side is our number one sector within our company, and it's growing. The SupportDDS.com is really taking off for us. And we have everything from the single practitioner who has 3 chairs and a front office staff person and an assistant to some larger DSOs that have upwards of 40 and I think 48 offices, our largest one. So they've really scaled up with their side of the services. But what it did was there was just a lot of these tasks that weren't getting done. Let's take an office maybe with a single doctor or maybe 2 docs and 5 or 8 practice office or 5 or 8 operatory office, and they were able to take all of those calls. The typical hold time I think is 22 minutes for an insurance call. We were able to have somebody do that while they're not also trying to do their work, and plus most of the offices didn't appreciate making those calls. That was not the task they wanted to do. But as that gets done, we found out that most offices, the smaller side, that may not be a full-time 40 hours. And what it did is it allowed them to do some other things like some patient recall or even hygiene recare, confirmation of their pending appointments or rescheduling of patients. Most of our doctors now have an actual IP phone setting at their desk if they don't use something like Ring Central or Zoom phone calls. They have the extension setting at their desk, so they can literally pick up the phone and dial them. And as you mentioned, it's a cool accent. I have conference calls with some of our team over there every day, and they're a lot of fun to talk to and very, very highly educated. And here's the key: they want to work. That makes a difference too.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of it. So yeah, I think we use Weave. So an IP phone system. So basically, I would have an assistant. And are you calling these virtual assistants? I mean, is that how you would describe it?
We call them team members because we feel like they actually become a part of your staff.
Okay.
But we call it, we changed it from outsourcing to insourcing. That's kind of our hashtag is hashtag insourcing because we believe it becomes part of your office as well. And yeah, Weave is a good example. We've got a number of our customers that use Weave, and we're able to plug their phone system right into our IP address there, and it's instantaneous.
Super cool. So, I have I'm just trying to think of an example. So we would have our morning meeting and, we maybe have a speakerphone for our insourced employee here. And then what? So you kind of they get a set of tasks for the day or how's the best? I'm just trying to picture, because I'm super interested in this. And I know staffing can be a challenge for a variety of reasons, but it seems like you've really tapped into an interesting workforce sector you told me earlier, I don't think we talked about it now, that these are super well-educated employees with this great accent. And so, how do I use this employee throughout the day? What tasks do we sort of assign? How does the staff interact with them?
Well, and I'll back up a little bit. Because it's a unique program and it's grown, we've actually established a 2-week training program that they all go through. So because of the growth rate, we keep about 5 to 8 trained at all time that are ready to go to work for an interview. So the process literally is you decide what you want. You may say, I need them to have a little accounting skills. I need to just be able to do the insurance verifications or maybe a little bit of marketing even. We'll source some resumes for you. And then we would actually do what we're doing right here. We would have a Zoom conference call. You would be able to have a face-to-face interview and then select the one that you wanted. The tasks then become real office. We found that insurance verification, as an example, is kind of one of the big ones, but every office does that a little different, whether they're using Open Dental or whether they're using EagleSoft or one of the other sources, they'll use it differently. So we tell them the most important thing is train them for the tasks that they want to do. We've got offices that do hygiene recare, but at the same time, they say, look, I want to have something posted on my social media every day, find some relevant content and post a picture, or I'll send you some pictures or pull from our patient file. So they really are able to do, actually a lot of offices tell us they get to do a lot of things that are never getting done because, a dentist probably having a social media post might be the last thing on their list to get done that week as well.
Yeah, interesting. So, and how does the payments work? Do the payments go through you? Is this a membership type thing? How does that work?
Yeah, we do it's a 30-day agreement. So there's no long-term contracts. It's a 30-day in or out. And you pay our Texas-based LLC. And we have HR and accounting staff and all of our support team there in Zimbabwe and Harare, the capital. and they handle all the local payrolls and benefits. And we do a lot of cool things. I mean, some interesting things. A lot of people have said, well, they'll say, hey, Blair or JW, they'll tell me, is this like a sweatshop? Are you paying them subpar labor prices? But we actually pay about double what the normal low rate is there. So we've able to scale up to a higher pay rate. So they're very happy with their salaries. We're on the 8th floor. You can go to our website. We're on the 8th floor of a high-rise building, and we're over the whole floor. And then we have additional floors that we're taking as well. So it's interesting. So they get a really nice work environment. We got high-speed, triple redundancy type internet, and they just really enjoy being there too.
That's amazing. So do you have any idea of how many employees you have in Zimbabwe that are involved?
Well, with the dental side, we now represent about, let me get the total count. I'm having to kind of think of some new ones, about 250 offices.
Wow.
And then, outside the dental, we've got some financial services, some payroll services, some software companies that utilize us that's non-dental, but that's our biggest sector is the dental side.
That's great. I mean, that's what an amazing thing to be able to do.
And Blair, it's life-changing too. The thing that happens is a little different here. By having that one team member, we call them, working, they're able to provide for themselves, typically their family, typically they may be the breadwinner for 8 or 9 people that they're able to help each day as well.
That's great. You must have some cool stories, more personalized stories about, dentists and what this has done for their offices and how this has improved, whether it's financials or, patient interaction. I mean, what stories come to mind when you think of, the employees that you offer and the staffing that you offer?
Well, I think some of the stories I was just thinking of, I do visit there about every 3 months. I'll stay for 2 to 4 weeks at a time. And I remember one of the girls asked me, she says, I get asked all the time, you have a very cool accent. They're talking to patients, right? So they've answered the phone call. They'll say, you got a really cool accent. Where are you from? And she says, is it okay if I say Zimbabwe? And I said, yeah, that's where you're from. But she was thinking, like, where are you at right now? She said, I didn't want to tell them I was in Zimbabwe. And I said, no, it's okay. I'm sure they don't mind. And so those stories are interesting. But I would say a couple of things that come to mind is how truly, many of our offices are a little bit resistant to it. The doc, like yourself, comes in and goes, oh man, we're doing this. Let's jump on, get on board. And our onboarding team will find a little resistance. And some of that is just protection of their own job. I believe they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my job. But that is never the case. That is not what we're trying to do. What we find it does, it actually elevates the other members of their team. Maybe they're good with accounting and they're great with the customers or the patients that are coming in, they're greeting. But instead of having to be on the phone doing a lot of these tasks that they really don't like to do anyway, they're able to focus on the care of the patient, which is primary for them.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking, I mean, in my experience, so 20 years in the dental field, orthodontic field, I've met a lot of different offices and different sort of eagerness to accept, new type things. And I don't even know if this feels new to you, but I would say to some people, this probably feels like a new
absolutely.
concept.
Absolutely.
But I'm thinking, I mean, what kind of, and in my experiences, there's a lot of skeptics, in the dental world. I mean, thinking like, oh, I'm going to get this employee and they're going to leave me, or I'm going to fall in love with them and they're going to leave, or maybe I have issues. I mean, how would you answer, the more skeptical businesses that recognize that this could be a really great tool, but they're not quite sure, they want all their skeptical questions. I mean, what are the most common questions you get from those skeptics?
Yeah, I would say those are really good questions. And because we get those a lot and trying to convince them, I tell people right off, Blair, I'll say, look, do an interview. Just do a face-to-face interview with 2 or 3 people, because they automatically almost always just hire somebody at that point, because they really then realize, oh my gosh, I had no idea that they had this quality and they spoke this well. So first of all, we try to get them so they can actually interact with them. The skepticism usually is by that term outsourcing, which not much we can do about it, whether you want to call it virtual assistant or whether you want to call it outsourcing or insourcing, because there's this image of a language barrier. And so I think that's the number one thing. If you go to our website, right in the middle of our website, you'll see there's There's 3 little short video clips. There's, I believe, 2 gentlemen and 1 lady on the front, right in the middle of our page. And they're 20, 25-second clips, and it's to hear them speak. And once you hear them speak, you completely changes. And of course, we still have people that say, well, I bet those 3 sound like that, but what about the rest of them?
Sure.
But that's very indicative of what most of the people are going to interview or are going to look and feel. So language barrier would be the first skepticism. And then the second is, well, they're not going to be able to do what my people do here. They're not going to be able to do what, and my response to that is just, if you train them, they will, because as you know, you hire somebody at your front office for your office manager or collections or patient care, whatever they're doing. If you don't train them, they can't do the job well at all. So we really stress the first 30 days doing some intense training.
Yeah. Is there any kind of commitment, if you sign up for this, that they have to make a 6-month, a year commitment to the employees or SupportDDS? How does that work?
We do an 8-year commitment. We like people to be locked in.
Good. I would say 15 is smarter. Yeah.
Yeah. Matches with your house payment.
Good.
We do 30 days when you first sign on. It's 30 days. It's a 30-day, auto renewing every 30 days. So we want people to feel like, hey, if this service isn't for me, if I can't financially afford it, if it's not working for my staff, then that's fine as well. So yeah, 30 days.
Okay. So fascinating. I mean, I think what a great idea. And I'm on the website right now. We'll put the link to the website in the show notes, but it's supportdds.com. You get to meet Teresa, Michael, and Simba. And I heard it before we started recording, and they really are pretty stunning, the accents. I mean, there's so many things that I could think of from the practice side where this would be not only beneficial and useful in the practice, but everybody that I know of needs help. I mean, I don't think of many offices that I'm like, yeah, we just have too many amazing people. We're just we're overflowing at that. We're actually like leasing them out. But it's also, a differentiator. I mean, to sort of feel like, you have this ability. How does the time, I feel like, so we didn't discuss this in the but I've been working with a remote assistant in the Philippines, and I love her. She's awesome. We work with her every day. So I'm familiar with this concept, but I actually before we met, I really wasn't aware, but I'm going to talk to you more afterwards about how we could do this for our business. But I think one of my things initially was I kind of felt guilty that I looked up the time and how the difference of the time zone. I mean, how does that work for them? Or what's your response when somebody says, like, aren't they supposed to be sleeping? Or, where are they at with this?
Well, yeah, there is that question. And my question is, yeah, but they'd rather have a job. So that's typically what the answer is. Sure. Ours, they just rotated back an hour with the daylight savings time, which you didn't have to do. So you are in Arizona.
We're weird.
You didn't have that problem. Or
us in Indiana, we can't figure it out. Yeah, or half of Indiana. Yeah.
Or Hawaii. Yeah, you got Hawaii. Yeah. But they're 6 hours ahead of us now. So they come in at 3 p.m. and to match up with our time is typically how they work. And they'll come in at 3 p.m. and then they'll work till 12 midnight is their 9-hour shift with an hour break in there. But that's really typically with the Philippines that you're probably finding your 10 to 12 hours difference, I think, is a typical difference.
It's funny. My personal experiences I cared about in the beginning. I couldn't even tell you the time right now. Now she's just an employee. I mean, I kind of forget about it. And through the technology today of whether it's, Slack or Google Hangouts, that's how we tend to communicate more. And she's very independent now. And I almost, it's funny, I forget about it a little bit.
Yeah.
If you ask me who Erica is, I can tell you who Erica is. But Erica is in the Philippines, we've never met face to face, only, in setups like this. It's pretty incredible. And, there's a part of it that I'm thinking about that you mentioned, that it often elevates the team. When my team sees, first of all, how much they, first of all, care about their work and can even remotely care about our office and our patients, they're impressed. And then when they hear how they communicate and the care they put into their communications, whether it's phone communications, hangout communications, they're very, and I've had 3 virtual employees over the years because they have switched over time, but not frequently. They're just so articulate and well spoken that I've always been impressed. And listening to the 3 voices you have, obviously it's a different accent, but reminds me of that same sort of dedication to customer service, professional behavior and communication. I mean, it's something that, you know, you can't, it's hard to put a value on that in terms of representing your practice.
Yeah. I always go back to Dr. Green in Fort Worth, who goes back as our first customer. You know, she says, you know, Melody is on our Wednesday team huddles. She zooms in on the call, and she's just a part of our group. We've got a Productive Dentist Academy. They've got some people working for them up in Washington, and they say, you know, we bring him in on our 9 a.m. meetings, and he's up on the television screen in our conference room. So I do think you're exactly right, as you mentioned about Erica. They just literally become a part of your group and part of your, you know, you see them as a full-time member of your team. And so you mentioned about the time difference and about work conditions. I think that's one thing we've really strived. My partner and I both, coming from Christian backgrounds, we knew that the ministry output was as important as any piece of it that we do. So we've even done things like, you know, we're adding a meal a day for each, so while they're at work, we're going to be able to have them a meal they don't have to go out for and absorb the cost. We've got fresh fruit for them every day. We have 2 full-time pastoral care members that are always there. We just had one of them works for me at a death in the family. So we're able to be there in their times of work, but also when they're suffering a little bit, we're able to give them some support. And so that's been a big aspect of what we do and what we try to incorporate. And again, going back to what you were talking about, they truly become just part of your team, and you don't even know that they're in the Philippines or in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, for anybody that's curious, any listeners that are curious how this works, I highly recommend doing what you said, watch the videos on your website and having an interview, because I think you'll be incredibly pleasantly surprised at the benefits, and you'll start where you might not think of where would I use this person. You'll find things left and right that, you know, that they can do as well or better than somebody that's in your office. And obviously they're not taking up any physical space. Sometimes you're limited by physical space. I don't have enough chairs. I don't have enough stations. Yeah. I don't have enough desks. You know, you really just don't even have to deal with that. We mentioned, we were discussing earlier, tell us a little bit about, you know, the church-based commitment that you were mentioning before in terms of profit of SupportDDS. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that's fascinating and really admirable.
Yeah, our both of our come from a Christian background. We both said, look, we're both running other businesses. We got into this. Sure, we want to make money like everybody else. That's have a successful business, but we did see it as a ministry. So we both committed actually a written document within our LLC that we are giving 51% of any profits back to ministries. My partner picks, he takes his half and can select which ministries he do, and I take mine and support places like Global Action, which trains pastors and leaders all over the world. And we just felt like that was a real intricate part. We call it a win-win-win, Blair. It's a win for the dental office or the business that's getting the support services. It's obviously a win for the individual that has a job and can support their family, and then it's a win for the ministries that we support. And you know, you mentioned something I didn't even know you had a virtual assistant until you just mentioned it. But to expand on that, we've got some dentists that have literally hired in big offices. They've hired personal assistants for them just to handle some of their day-to-day things that they needed to offload. We've got some offices that have virtual HR people that are actually handling a lot of paperwork and processing of documents and onboarding. All my accounting is there. Everything except my annual tax returns is done there. I've got a CPA level person that works for me there in my dental equipment side. We got logistics. I've got people who run pay-per-click and social media campaigns, run our Facebook marketing. Most of the stuff on my LinkedIn, I'm not actually posting. I've got somebody that does all my LinkedIn posts so that we can keep our business out there. So there's just an assortment of things you can do. And I can just tell you the level, the skill level, and the understanding once you get them trained. I mean, I've got a marketing team there now in both of our global BP, SupportDDS, and then my dental equipment company that are just second to none, from social media to graphic design to websites. All the websites you're on, keep in mind, those were all built in Zimbabwe. We didn't build those in the U.S. So all of our marketing team there. So really, really fantastic, I think, what they can do. So you have to expand a little bit into, as you mentioned, if they're working in your dental office, it's not just about you can outsource insurance verification and pay somebody between $4 and $12 per verification. But this is much more. They actually work for you, and you get to direct their schedules and help you and assist with other tasks as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And stepping back to, the nature of your business and how you handle your profits. I mean, I think in this day and age, people want to work with businesses that aren't only great at what they do, which obviously you guys do well, but they want to feel like, they're attached to businesses that are doing well for their communities around them, both locally in terms of the way you guys do, and globally. And it seems like you hit all the marks on that one. So it's really impressive.
Oh, thank you. It's important to us. I mean, it's more important than making a living. We want to, you get a little older, right? And you start thinking about what legacy am I going to leave, and not some beat up cars in the driveway or a big house or whatever. It's what legacy do you leave too?
Absolutely. I mean, you're following that, making a dent in the universe. I mean, you guys are doing it. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Tell us, I want to move on to kind of our short answer questions here. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about what's coming up for you in Everest. I mean, this is amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've got a group. There's 3 or 4 of us in a group that we've done a few events together, some hiking and some. And I'm not a big. I'm 230 pounds, so I'm not a lightweight. I'm not 7 feet tall. I'm 5'10.5". So, I struggled. I tried to do here's my Cowtown Marathon. I ran the half a couple of weeks ago, getting ready for this. But so I'm always trying to put something out there, and I know that I'm not ever going to climb to the top of Mount Everest at 29,000 feet. But Everest Base Camp was like, hey, 17. Well, actually, you go up to about 18.2 when you go to this little valley. So I said, I can do that. So we planned it about a year ago. We leave on March the 20th. Be gone about 2.5 weeks. It's 12 days up and back. So it's quite a bit.
So that's what it is. I was curious. It's 12 days to get there.
Well, once you land, once you get to Lukla, which is where you fly into Kathmandu, you helicopter over to Lukla. And then when you start there, it's 12 days total up and back, and you stay in tea houses along the way. So we're excited. As long as this air travel is still possible in a week and a half, we'll be headed that direction. So it's exciting.
That's right. Hopefully by the time, if anybody's listening to this post, hopefully we're post coronavirus.
Yeah.
I mean, and away from
this
that.
too shall pass, as it always does.
It will. So tell me, one question I always like to ask our guests, and our short answer question is, what do you think your business superpower is?
Well, first of all, I want to add, I've been in the business 33 years, and I will say what you're doing is really cool. The whole retainer club is just through the roof, and I just want to commend you on that. You're taking the technology and being able to use it to utilize it to also give some patient benefits. Because look, that's the pain, right? Is as we talked a little bit about before the show, I don't want to go in and have to get a retainer out of this thing. Can I just ship it to me? And amazing concept. And
thanks. We were talking a cute story just to share for the listeners about your daughter, which is the story. Unfortunately, we hear too much. That daughter came into town from out of town, right? And and she stopped wearing the retainer, and the teeth moved, and now she's looking at treatment again, which I'm sure they weren't doing it for free.
No, that was quite a cost, and I'm thinking I could have saved quite a couple of $1,000s if I would have not had to do she would have bought some $99 retainers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story we hear unfortunately too much, and we're doing our best to try to change that story. So yeah, I mean, I always like to think of it in terms of superpower. I mean, I feel like I just talking to you in this short amount of time, I feel like I could think of a few of them in terms of your commitments to sort of this bigger goal in terms of the ministry and stuff like that. But what do you feel like your business superpower is? What's gotten you so successful?
I think it's because we really offer value. I think that is our superpower. We're not trying to sell you something you don't need. We don't even really do a hard sell. We tell people what we offer, see if it's for you. I believe it could benefit every single dental office or medical facility. We do some work for some medical facilities as well. So I think our superpower is that we're able to help a practice economically, help them out handling some tasks that may or may not be getting done or could be done better. and then we're also putting people to work. And I think that's the most important thing. So we're trying to be those hands and feet of Jesus, if you will, and just trying to help in all areas, that true win-win-win.
Very nice. And is there anything you're watching or reading lately that you want to share or that you're super excited about?
Let's see. Yeah, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm reading Robert Morris's Take the Day Off. And it's really just saying, because I can be caught up like everybody else in just reading or working too much. And, that book just says, hey, one day just turn it all off, turn the technology off, turn the obligations and the work and the computer. And that's hard in today, right? I mean, you got a phone in your hand and everything else around you. So that book's been real well. And then going to the other end of the spectrum, I just finished Screw It, Let's Do It by Richard Branson. It's cool. A little quick read, they call it. So, but I'm always trying to read something. I just feel like there's a lot to learn. And I'm going to start listening to this podcast because
great.
It's informative.
Oh, thanks so much. So in closing this up, is there a way that listeners can get a hold of you or somebody on your team if they have more questions and want to get more information?
Yeah, if you go to the SupportDDS.com, there's a place, there's two areas. You can go to the Contact Us. We'll be happy to, you can call us, you can email us. There's also a place right in the middle that says Get Started. And you can actually click on that link and you can actually kind of lay out the type of person you're looking for, and it'll send us an email, and we can then email or call you and have a conversation. Again, I just stress, look at the website, go through it, see if there's something that interests you. If you've got a need, do the interview. There's no obligation, and then you got to feel for what we do. And if you're happy to move forward with it, we'd happy to set that up for you. I think we got a great service. We got a great team that'll help on board as well.
You guys do, and I'm excited to check it out for myself. So JW, thank you so much for being on the In Your Face podcast, and we look forward to hearing more from you and SupportDDS soon.
All right, so much. Blair, thanks for having me. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the In Your Face podcast with your hosts, Craig Weiss and Blair Feldman. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.